been a while. COVID has had me sidelined for a couple of months now. Still not 100%. I'll get there. It's just going to take a long time. That's why they call it long haul COVID. I'm one of those fortunate people. But today, I knew I had a bunch of apples that I really needed to use up that weren't being eaten. And I know I have more apples coming in my food delivery box this week. So I decided it was a good morning for apple bread. And my family actually really likes this. I don't make it often because we don't have a lot of apples just laying around. But I'm gonna start with 2 cups of bread flour. I like bread flour because it gives a little bit of strength to the bread so that it's not just soft and falling apart and gushy. And it holds up to liquid type things like the apples will be, because when they cook, they'll release some of their juices. So 2 cups of bread flour, a teaspoon of baking powder. Y'all, I love these new little measuring spoons that Chris found for me. Number 1, they're magnetic. Number 2, they come with a leveler. And number 3, they have dry and liquid sides. So very, very cool. It's the first time I've used the leveler. Isn't that cool? So, teaspoon of baking powder. Teaspoon of baking soda. Now the baking soda box has its own little built-in leveler. You don't have to worry about that. And then a teaspoon of salt. And you can't have apples without cinnamon, right? Am I right? Apples and cinnamon, it just goes together. So, teaspoon of cinnamon. Yeah, ooh, look at that. Spilled a little bit over in the bowl. Oh, well. And I'm going to do a 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg because I think nutmeg just adds that little pop of flavor that you need. We can level this one. Use the other side of the leveler. So that's an 1/8, and then I'm going to do one more to get a 1/4. I think my 1/4 teaspoon one is in the dishwasher. So, and that's my dry ingredients right there. I'm going to get these out of the way and stir this. Get that nice and mixed in together because I want all of those seasonings and leavenings. Ooh, it's already smelling good. I just like the smell of cinnamon and nutmeg together. I'll make sure it's all mixed in together really well. So, dry ingredients, done. Wet ingredients. I've got 2 eggs that I've already lightly beaten. I'm gonna add 1/2 cup of oil. And you can certainly use applesauce instead of the oil. The only time I ever have applesauce in the house is when my older kids are home. Benjamin almost never eats it. Abby does, and Abby's boyfriend does when he's here. So that's kind of the only time I have applesauce at home. 2 teaspoons of vanilla. I go through so much vanilla, y'all, when I'm in my baking moods. It's not even funny the amount of money we spend on vanilla. Am I right, Chris?
It ain't cheap.
No, because I don't use the imitation vanilla stuff. I use actual vanilla. So, I've got a cup of loosely packed brown sugar. I want it loosely packed because if you heavily pack the brown sugar, you're adding so much sugar, it's going to end up being too sweet. And this is light brown sugar. You can certainly use dark brown sugar too, if you want a little bit more of a molassesy flavor. I don't know if molassesy is a word or not, but I'm using it. And then a cup of white sugar. My oven is preheated to 350, and my pan, I've already sprayed it so that when this is done, I just pour it in. I hear a kitty. So getting all that started. Oh, I gotta break up some clumps in that brown sugar. I think it got left so that it dried a little bit. This is what happens when I don't stay on top of my baking like I normally would. Okay, when you, well, I'm gonna go, before I tell you that part, I'm gonna go ahead and mix in the apples. Come on, I got a clump. There we go. Get that clump broken up. And then I'm gonna mix in the apples. And just until it's just stirred in there. It's not gonna, some of the mix went flying. This is gonna look like a really, really thick mixture once it's all said and done, but remember, these apples are gonna add a lot of moisture. Don't worry if your apples start to turn just a tiny bit brown before you get started mixing everything up. Ordinarily, if I weren't making a video, I might wait until the last minute to cut the apples up and stir them in, but I needed it all prepared. And you can add, if you do it ahead of time, just add a little lemon. A little bit of lemon juice to the apples, mix it up really well, and it's fine. So, you can see those apples are really getting coated. And the funny thing is, if I let this sit for just a little while, these apples would already start releasing their juice because that sugar makes them start releasing their juices, and it would get really liquid really fast. So that's why this is a pretty thick mixture. Once it's all said and done, it looks like it's never gonna cook because it just gets so much liquid to it, or so dry in the beginning, and then it adds the liquid. Chris, look what you made me do.
Nope.
So adding in this flour is going to take a minute. I like to make just a simple powdered sugar drizzle to go on top, or just eat it with butter. Either way, depends on what you're in the mood for, honestly. It's already pretty sweet, so if you're in the mood to keep that sweet, then just put a little more sweet to it by adding the apple cinnamon or the powdered sugar drizzle. You can, if it's too sweet or sweet enough for you already, then just take a little bit of butter and put it on there. That little bit of salt from that butter makes it really good.
I just do both.
You can do both. It might trick your taste buds a little bit. So if you look at this, it's almost like a biscuit dough or even a pie crust. It's a very, very dry mixture, but it's already moistening up just in the time that I've spent mixing it a little bit more. So I'm gonna put this in my pan. I'm gonna put it in the oven at 350. At about 45 minutes, I'm gonna check it, and it's probably gonna start looking pretty brown. And so I'll put some foil on top so that the rest of it kind of steams inside there too, so that the sugars don't burn. They just steam and cook. Might caramelize a little bit at the end. And if you do actually check it like a cake, take a teaspoon or take a toothpick. Sorry, the other thing I deal with a lot right now is brain fog from the COVID. And so I mix up words sometimes and have to correct myself a lot. It kind of stinks because I'm used to just being able to get in there and talk and be me and not mess up words, but you know, it is what it is. So I'm gonna finish getting this in my pan. I'm gonna pop this in the oven for 45 minutes. Check it, it'll probably go for another 15, and I'll see y'all back when it's done. I just got it out of the oven. Took about an hour and 10 minutes because sometimes you don't know with that moisture content what's gonna happen, because some apples have more water than others, and I literally just grabbed whatever apples I had around. You can be more specific and check moisture contents and whatever, but not me. So just took it out, that toothpick in there, that came out just as clean as I want it. I'm gonna let this rest for about 10 minutes, and then I'm gonna turn it out, and I'm gonna put my topping on it. And my topping here is, it's so simple. I took a half a cup of powdered sugar. a teaspoon and a half of cream cheese, because I kind of like the little bit of tart that cream cheese adds to it. A splash, maybe an eighth of a teaspoon of vanilla, and maybe a teaspoon of milk, because this was about the consistency I wanted it. Your consistency is totally dependent on you. If you want it drier, use a little less. If you want it more wet, use a little more. And I will be back in a few minutes when I turn this out and coat it in that goodness. Time to turn it out. Hopefully, yeah, there we go. Look how pretty that is. If you look close, you can see little bits of apple everywhere, all in there. You see that? Still nice and warm too. You're ridiculous this morning. I don't know why I pay you. Cover this. Just drizzle, 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 drizzle. You can do it fancy if you want, but you know what? I'm hungry. I've been waiting on this. But I do suggest that you keep something underneath it. That's why I got my little cutting board there. Get those ends real good. And then I'm gonna cut it because we're hungry. This is our breakfast for this morning, y'all. Does that look like enough to you, Chris?
Maybe.
Maybe. Hopefully. The only thing about this is, like, a lot of times when I make a loaf of something, I just stick my hand on top and cut it. Can't really do that. Oh, you hear that, crispy? Crispy edges are good.
Cut the bread, not the finger.
I know what I'm doing. Look at that. That's already running down in there. So, that's going to be a yummy breakfast for me. Chris might get a piece of it if he can behave himself long enough. Take this recipe. Try it. Let me know if you like it. I hope you do. Y'all take care.